Hey, what's up, guys? My name's Aiden Rudd, and I am a techno producer based out of Naarm, Australia. And today I'm going to be breaking down my track Colt that I just self-released as part of my Putrescent EP. But yeah, so if you like my music and if you like what I do, then just buy my music and it will help. Honestly, buying my tracks and like playing it out live does so much for me. Seeing it get like played around the world by some of my favorite artists and like tons of fans is just actually crazy, which is one of the main reasons why I'm doing this. I want to be able to give back to you guys who like are inspired to produce. I want to show you the insights on how I do it and get you guys inspired and keen to like start making your own shit. So yeah, before we get into it, I'll play you guys a snippet of the song and you can see what we're going to be breaking down today. So there you go, that is my song Colt. I played you a bit of just this part here, and then a breakdown, which I call the verse, and the chorus, well, the stripped back chorus. All right, so what we're gonna break down is where I start when I start a song, the arrangement of the track, the different elements, and like the template that I have in Ableton that I use whenever I start up Ableton, and why I like it, and then just some like, I guess, philosophical things on like my idea when it comes behind production, like what my goal is while I'm doing this. Before we get into it, I just want to say like I might do things differently to what like some other pros tell you or what some other videos tell you. I will do stuff that's counterintuitive that you'd be like, why did you just put an EQ boosting those frequencies and then put another EQ cutting those frequencies? Like, why did you do that? It's just things that happen. These things happen when you're like zoned out in the workflow. And that's kind of my main goal when it comes to production, to be zoned out and to try not get bogged down so that I can be having fun. And when I do that, I tend to do things differently sometimes. And I don't always do the same stuff. Like, yeah, I have a workflow. I have like a template that I use. But like the way I do my kicks or the way I do my bass lines, like they change pretty regularly. Like, and I'll explain that when we get up to the bass line. Or even like this, like I don't make this style of techno that much. This was something because I think I was listening to Rene Wise or one of his sets and I heard some music in there that I was like, damn, that's so sick. I want to try that out. It really inspired me. So I tried to make this stuff. Enough of that little tangent. Let's get into it. So first things first, starting off a new song, what do? I start with my kick and then my bass line. The reason I do this is because I feel like in techno, or maybe like most electronic music, the kick and bass, that's like basically the heartbeat of the song. I have this little like kind of like philosophy. I don't know if I came up with it or if like I heard it somewhere and it's just been stuck in my head since. But I feel like when you're in a club, if you have a song that you can just cut everything out and it's just the kick and bass line, if that can have people dancing, then you've done your job. Because there are times where songs like they strip back and it is literally just like a kick and a bass line and you'll be in a club and it'll work. You've been like it's been going hectic like all night. The DJ's like layering like tons of fucking tunes together and then they just cut it back to this like one kick and bass. Like it just works so well sometimes. And I feel like if you have nailed that in your song, that groove between where the bass line's like grooving and bouncing between the kick, then like that's like the song. That's like the whole thing. And the rest is just adds on to that. But yeah, enough of me waffling on about my philosophy. This is the kick. So I'll play it here. And this is where it starts. This is the first thing I do. I just get a kick. And you can get them anywhere. Splice has some really good ones. There's a lot of packs out there that have really good kicks. Vengeance has, they're alright. I like my kicks to have a little bit more like low end thump. For me, when it comes to my kick, you have to like kind of decide between like what type of kick do you want. Do you want like a big boomy 909? Or do you want like a real tight, like crisp, punchy kick? It really doesn't matter because like, as I said, it's like the heartbeat of the song. It really kind of like sets the tone. because we're mixing as we go, because that's what I do, everything gets built around off each element as it gets made. So I'll make the kick, and then I'll put the bass line in, and that bass line's going to work with that kick, and then everything's going to work off that kick and bass line. So that if I come back and change the kick, it's really going to change the whole vibe of the song. It might not even work. Like, I could have made like a really tight, crisp, clean like song where everything's short, sharp samples that's based around like a short and sharp kick, and then I come back and switch that out for like a big long 909. It's really going to like, might not gel. I mean, it might work, but I found like just a lot of the times it doesn't, if that makes sense. So yeah, we start off with the kick. You can see I have 2 layers here. Don't worry about all this shit. 2 layers here. First layer is just the normal kick. So I'll start off with just like the body. Something that's quite thumpy. I think this one's off Splice. It's like the sub, the mids, like all that shit. And then I add satin. This one, I did something different with this. I was watching a Toru Ikemoto. I think I said his name correctly. I was watching one of his tutorials, and he did this really cool thing where he distorted the initial transient in satin. So I've just boosted some of these here to the treble just so it's a bit more clearer. But what this does is, you can see it's linked to the drive. I'll play it and you'll see it. What this is doing is basically, this is an envelope and it's turning up the drive to about here and distorting it and then quickly cutting it out only on like the transient of the kick, so the initial hit. And it's kind of giving it like a punchy slap. Really cool technique. I don't like do it anymore. I just honestly, I forget about it. I forgot I even did that in this track. But, and yeah, so really cool thing you can do. Usually though, I'll just add satin on, leave it completely stock. Don't even touch it. It's like initial settings are really nice. And you can like, you'll hear it if you have headphones on. Usually it's just beefs it a bit. Also turns it down by a decibel, which is good. But like audibly it doesn't. Just put it on stock and then go through these, the tape and then like the tube, and yeah, and see which ones you like. You don't have to do that though. This is just real subtle shit. And then an EQ, again, I don't even do this much anymore, but this one I did. I rolled off some of the lows and I didn't like the high. See, it's like really distorted and that. Like you can still kind of hear it when I cut it out, but I didn't want that. Like I didn't want that like fuzziness on it. So I just cut it out. And that's it. That's the kick. And then I was like, well, I've cut the highs out now. So shit, how do I get like high end on my kick? Because I want some high end on my kick. Just add another layer. This is one of the ones I made. I think I made it with Operator like ages ago. I put like some layers and like Haas effect in that. And it's literally just a kick. And I've just cut the highs out. I mean the lows out, sorry. And yeah, this is that satin trick. Satin just on default. Probably not needed because I'm cutting all the lows out. But, you know, I mean, it's just a habit that I do. I don't even think when I'm making songs. I just kind of like zone out. And then just kind of the processes that I've learned, I just do. And then I have this on. And I'm just cutting the lows. Boosting a little bit here. And I have it in linear phase because sometimes when you don't have it in linear phase, you can hear like kind of like a double hit. But you just have to be worried that linear phase will cause like a delay. You can see down here, there's like a big delay because of linear phase. But it sounded good in my ears. Oh yeah, and it was quiet, so I fucking turned it up. And then Transient Master. I use this a lot. It's really good on kicks. So you just pull down a little bit on the sustain, push the attack, and you get nice punch. Real subtle stuff. And then I grouped them. Just compressed it. I've made the attack a little bit longer so that like the more of the actual kick comes through. With and out. Just flattens it a little bit so I have a bit more of a flatter signal. Just habits that I picked up when I used to make dubstep. You have to get shit really loud, like compressing a lot so that you can get stuff really loud. It kind of stuck with me. And then an EQ pushing down at 10k. And yeah, I mean, and then I've grouped that again, the kicks. I don't know why. To add an EQ so that I can just automate that. I don't know why I didn't just put the EQ here or just even do it on that. See what I mean? How like I do kind of like stuff that's counterintuitive. Just real weird. And yeah, that's that. That's my kicks. And now we're getting into the bass. Don't worry about this stuff yet. I'll go through that a bit later, the whole kick and bass group, but we'll get into the bass. And that is where this comes in, the groove. That's fat. Like that's a new bass line. I actually came through and remade that. So what I do is you get a drum rack, and you don't even have to have a drum rack. You can just put like a sample in and have it on slice. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So if we go, I don't know, like bass line. And then you put it on slice. Now when I play a note, wherever it is. Oops, wrong, my bad. It's going to be playing the different notes. It's going to be playing these, triggering them. But we didn't do that in this one. We used the drum rack. And what I did is I found toms on like Splice in all sorts of packs. I think, yeah, Evo Sounds has some really good ones. He has it's Zen World, I think, on YouTube. Has a really sick tutorial on like West Coast Tech House. Kind of like, it's about 2-3 years old. But he promotes a pack in there. I can't remember which one it is, where he has these toms and they're real punchy. They have a lot of bass and like so sick for bass lines. So yeah, I just try to get toms that aren't like real like airy or like open-ended. They have some body to them. So I'll show you what I mean. See, they're like bassy toms. And then add amp, Ableton, this amp, leave it stock. I mean, you can mess around with it if you want, but just leave it stock and it'll distort it like crazy. Usually I have it at 100. This time I had it at 30. 100, leave it at 100%, it's fine, because we're going to cut some of the lows and we're going to cut the highs. So it'll be like a distorted mess. We'll leave that gone. We'll just turn these things off. That way I can show you what my toms, what it all sounds like in the process. So originally it sounds like this. You're like, oh, that kind of sounds kind of lame. How are we going to make bass out of that? Well, we'll distort it. All right, we're getting there. It's getting distorted. It's sounding gritty. Satin again, just that same thing. I was using linear phase. I think I was going through a bit of a phase where I was using linear phase on like my bass lines and that. And I don't do that anymore. I don't know. It was just causing CPU problems. But yeah, add satin, leave it stock, go through the different tape or tube. It just beefs it a bit. So you can tell it like tamed like some of the high end. Really subtle, like honestly, not even needed. And then I compress in it. That's just because some of them are louder than the other in this sample pack. When I like in this sorry, not sample pack, in this drum rack. That way it's all like the same sound basically. And then I sidechain this Live 8 sidechain. I saw a Duskus video once. At the time, it was really annoying me how my sidechain kept clicking. I was using, I think, LFO tool or Kickstart, and it kept clicking, like real little click. Just annoying the shit out of me. And then I saw in his video, he's like, oh, I use Live 8 compressor and have that linked to like a ghost channel. So this, and that's how he compresses. So I did that, and it's just a habit that I like using now. So with the sidechain on, and that is sidechain to the kick. So the trigger, it's this thing. It's just like a perk sound that I've got really, really loud. It's going to the sends only or whatever. I don't know the way I've routed it. I can't even remember how I did it. And that is triggering this. It's not the kick. So if I had the kick, this whole thing, this long bassy thing, would be triggering it. And I don't want that. See how big that is? Like, I don't want that. I just want this to essentially get turned on. I just want the compressor to turn on, and then I can control the tail of it with the release all on my own. And that's why I use this. Really cool technique. No clicks. You can just use Kickstart if you have that. You can use LFO tool and just move like the back of it in. Same shit. And then EQ. Again, like I said, I was going through like a linear phase. Not needed. You could even use like the EQ8 if you want. Can be a bit risky when you're cutting the subs. You will hear a difference if you don't have linear phase on. So say like you cut at like 40 like I have, you're going to hear like the sound of the bass change. I can't remember technically why it does that, but like I just know what it does and how it sounds and how to combat that. That's like the kind of producer I am, just like another thing so you guys don't get hung up. I know how to do technical things, but I don't really know a lot of the hectic process behind them. I just know that you can hear when you cut, like it fundamentally changes the sound. And I don't want that. So I added linear phase. Again, it's going to be heavy on your CPU. It's going to like delay your track a fair bit. So if you have sidechain after it, it might fuck with that. So just be careful. You don't have to do this. I don't always do it. Sometimes the phasing issues that's caused from not using linear phase is actually sick and sounds good. But yeah, cutting the highs, cutting the lows, and it was way too bassy. Just wanted to pull down. I mean, not bassy. It's like the low mids were like a bit too much for me. So I just wanted to pull that down. And then and utility doing nothing, because when I make a new channel, I have EQ and utility just load in just out of ease, so I can just go through and EQ straight away. And rather than turning down here or automating when I want to automate volume or something left to right, it's already here. Because you don't automate these. Because if you automate these and then want to go through and change the value of it, it'll ruin your automation. So just if you need to automate your volume on a channel or your panning, put a utility on last and then or first or wherever, and then do it. And yeah, that's that. That's how I make a bass line. But now you might be asking, Aiden, how did you actually make the pattern? I don't know what I'm doing. Well, actually I'll turn the rumble off and we'll play them together. That's fat. Oh shit. So you might be like, Aiden, how do I fucking make a bass line? I don't know what I'm doing. Well, you go into piano roll and you place it. And that's how you do it. Like, that's what I did in this one. I was using a sequencer and it wasn't working, so I did it myself. And it worked. Or you can add sting. So this is a Max for Live. It's free. It's really cool. It's like an acid bassline, Max for Live plugin. Really, really good. You can create bass lines. And there's so many different sequences you can use. ML185, Rosa, Snake, Sequined, which you have to pay for. I mean, Sting, this one. There's just so many. Like, sequences are great. We're making techno here, so like you really got to get your head around some sequences because they're fucking fun. Getting a computer to do shit for you is so sick. But yeah, Sting. So you just go like this. Each time I click this smiley face, it's going to create a new pattern for me. And then if I want the pattern to be like a lot of notes, turn that up. If I want it longer than 8 bars, turn it up. So sick, but I like it in 8. I like it quite repetitive, my bass lines. And then I think this is just like another algorithm. Like, they're different kind of like styles. Let's say we like that. You're thinking, well, I like that one, but every time I exit Ableton and come back in, it resets Sting. I can't have that. That's too hard. It also plays throughout the whole time, no matter what. What do I do to fix that? Well, I have a solution. We'll delete this, and I'll show you how. So, create a new MIDI channel. All right. And see where this says all ends? We're going to go to the channel with Sting, which is, I've named it Groove. So we'll click down here and go Groove. And then we're going to arm it so that when we hit record, it's this channel that's going to get recorded into. And what we've just told it to do is it's going to hear the input of this, and it's going to record the MIDI notes that this is making down here. And you'll see what I mean when I click play, when I click record, sorry. And that, we'll turn this off. Oops. That is the new bass line. So it's only 8 bars, so we can go here, Control J to consolidate it, go into it. I click like 16. You can see it's placed the notes here, but I click 16 just so it's like visually pretty. Click loop, and now we've got our bass line. And that is how you can make bass lines. And now you might be like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like how it works. Well, then now we go in and we edit it. You might like the pattern it's made, but you might not like the choice of tom. And yeah, you just do that. Just how you can make bass lines if you don't want to draw it in yourself. This one, like, look how simple this pattern is, and it just works. And that's how we make like the groove aspect of my bass line, which sounds like this. Sick. Now let's make the rumble. Sounded nice. And I'm going to go through and show you how I did that with. So this rumble starts from the body of the kick, and I use the same kick so that the rumble is kind of like similar tone to like the kick, if that makes sense. So I'll literally drag this down here, rename it rumble, and then start from there. And you can see it's the same processing. See, it's the same Saturn, same EQ. Kick, see? Exactly the same. It's copied down. But what I do differently is I'll add reverb. So Valhalla Vintage Verb is really good for making rumbles. I use it like every day. But any reverb will do the trick. Ableton's reverb, they're all fucking great. So recommend just picking one you have and just like kind of learning how it works, and then making your reverb, making your like rumbles that way. But yeah, all I did, left it on concert hall, turned down the size a bit, turned off the pre-delay, lowered this because it starts at 4, and I didn't even touch these EQs, and now it sounds like this. Sounds like fucking shit. But we'll distort it and add amp on. And that makes it mono also. You'll notice here, mono. I mean, you might want a wide rumble. Like, you can do that if you want. I just like it mono. Compressing it to flatten it out. Basically, it's just this big, like, yuck noise. And then sidechain, same thing. We're getting there. Kickstart, because why not sidechain more after you've sidechained? I don't know why I did that. I mean, it works. It's not doing anything wrong, so we'll leave it. Now here's the fun part. EQ. Cutting out the highs, cutting out some of the lows. We're doing it at 50. Sometimes because I'm layering a rumble with a groovy bass line, they will like distort with each other. It's like big no. Don't layer and like make basses hit each other. But it works in this case. So just do it. Who cares? Sometimes I'll bring this up to like 60 or 70 so that it doesn't fight so much with the bass. Other times, I'll add a compressor here with a sidechain and then sidechain that from the groove. Boop. So every time this plays, it triggers this, which turns down the volume, which means that basically this rumble is just filling the gaps when like the basses hit. Tried it on this one, didn't work. That's why it was turned off. But yeah, now it sounds like this. With the bass line. And you can't really hear it, but you will hear, it's more of like a feeling thing. You'll hear when it's gone. So I'll play it with it and then I will turn it off and you can tell a difference. And it's all about finding a nice happy medium. So like I've dropped this by 10, you might have it the same level, it might be louder, it might be quieter. You just use your ears, just go through it. Like, you like this music, you're making this music because you like it, you've heard it before, so just trust your ears. And if your ears are leading you astray, then you need more practice and just keep making music over and over and over again and enjoying the process, and you will just get better. And that's the rumble and groove. So now I like to make them gel a bit. Usually don't do EQing like this, especially on like a group, but this time I did, so whatever. Now we use the best plugin in Ableton, Overdrive. And what I've done, turn the dynamics down, turned the dry wave all the way up, so it's like affecting 100% of the signal. Put this at 9, and you'll see, so that's like basically going to be distorting or saturating, whatever it does to the whole like signal. And it starts off here, but as you can see, it's not the whole spectrum. So I usually put it at 900 so that it's covering everything. Anywhere lower, it starts to pull from the high end. And anywhere higher, starts to pull from the low end. I found that 900 really good. And what I've done is it's just driving it by 20%. And then the tone, because it's a bass and I don't really want much highs, I've turned it down to 20%. And what this kind of does is it's almost like, it's like a compressor almost. It really gels the sound together. It's such a sick plugin. Like, I use it on my kicks and everything. It just makes them work together as one. So I'll turn it off and on and you'll hear it. So this is with it off. And then on. I mean, I like that. It's just like a big fat, bit more like, not as clean, a little bit more dirty. And then I cut at the 100. Because it's a bass, I didn't want to hear that, like the toms you could hear hitting. I didn't want that. And then this is just the compressor, just compressing the shit. Yeah, left it stock, just put it on peak. Dropped it a fair bit so that it was doing its job. And then output by 2. Cool. And this is just an EQ that I automate on to cut the lows. That's all that is. And together, we have this. Oops. Ah, cool. Without this processing. It's really like kind of empty and flat. And then we do that same overdrive trick. Just fattens it up. It's so sick. Some EQ. Cutting at the lows with linear phase on. I don't always do this. That's why it surprised you. 45 as well. If you have good speakers or headphones, you'll just hear like when you're without it. It really just like evens it out a bit. Like there's a little bit too much like sub. And then I'm boosting there for that kick. So yeah, I've cut at 10K and then later on I've boosted at 10K. So, you know, a bit counterproductive, but is what it is. And then compressing that kick, because I like to use LFO tool just visually. It's not actually doing anything. Look at that kick. Way louder. So if we compress it a bit. Yeah, now it's even. Now it's just bass and kick all working together as one. And then I was just having fun. I've been doing this a bit lately. Just slamming it into a limiter. Soft clipping just to crush it even more. Because why not? I mean, and it sounds sick. And then, because I'm boosting by 5, I turned it down by like 4 to even it out. Because I wanted it to crush, be like limited together and soft clips together as like kind of like sausaged. But I didn't want it to be extra loud. So I just put the utility at the end. Kind of like what you do. Kind of like the makeup gain in a compressor. Similar shit. And that's the kick and bass, the heart of the song. And I hope that helps. Next thing that I get into is the hi-hat. So this. Well, the drums. I'll play the drums as a whole and then we'll work our way through it. And you'll see. And we'll go through the layers. So first things first is a hat. It's just from a Vengeance sample pack. Hats are, you can get hats from like Splice, many sample packs. Splice has some good ones. And then I've got overdrive, same thing, just not touching the tone this time. Just start driving it a bit. This is really good on like hi-hats, drums, vocals and all that. So what you do, you can use this in Valhalla Vintage Verb. Mix it, like it's only at 3, but you can really hear it doing its job. So the mix at 3, pre-delay down, decay like usually around here, not much. I turned the size down a bit, pushed this up to 20K and then cut the lows and changed it to Bright Hall. And yeah, and then I just cut out some shit frequencies. And then drop the width. And that's just that hat. And then I like to add in another hat so I get some variation. Similar processing, but instead of using Valhalla Vintage Verb, I use this preset. Oh shit, my bad. This hallucination. I don't know how to say it. Sick preset, really similar to that Valhalla Vintage Verb. So if you don't have Valhalla Vintage Verb, but you want a good reverb, this is a really nice preset. Just mess around with like the diffuse, dry wet, stereo. It's how long it is, pre-delay, and EQs. Really cool. And then again, some more EQing. It was a bit harsh. And layered with that, so you can hear it come in. And then I have a shuffle that I've just made. I just made a little pattern, real simple, no groove, nothing. It was a really wide hat. I didn't like how it slid in. See, you can see it like slides in. I wanted it to be like quite a punchy hat. So just move that forward. I have it on classic. I've dropped the sustain and I've really lowered the decay a lot. Just real short. And EQ'd. Cutting out some highs basically just so that it's not really interfering with these highs. And then amp again. Really changing the sound. It's also good. Amp is also a really cool thing you should use. Get your head around. Echo. Just giving it a bit of like a groove. You know what I mean? Like it's just the echo but on 22%, 50% feedback, and I've just like EQ'd it a bit. No reverb on. And I think it's on stock other than that. And then this hallucinatone preset without it. Yeah, really boring with it. These two things, like I use these a lot and like they really make sounds good. And then I've just sidechained it a bit to the kick. Just so that the echoes and the reverb don't get in the way. Cool. And then a shaker. We'll do the rides in a minute. Just like a nice loop. I think that's off Splice. I've just, basic EQing, compressing it, turn that all the way down because I didn't want its own like hi-hat clashing with my hi-hat. So I just, compress the shit out of it. Sidechain. See how the hi-hat's really loud? I could have just sidechained it, but I just compressed. Sick. And then rides. So this is in a 606 core pack. Where are we? There's this really cool cymbal mod. It's so sick. It's like, I love how it's like robotic sounding. Doesn't sound real. It clearly sounds like it was made on a drum machine. I like that. Oh shit. Just compressing. Some more sidechain. And then some EQ. And you'll see this 6. Look at this. Real yuck frequency. Hear that? Ugh, I didn't like that. So I cut it out. Not all the way. Because it's part of the sound. Gives it part of its sound. If you cut it all the way, it gets a bit empty. And then I made it wide with Huss. So this is just a delay. That's all it is. And you have it on time. And you just delay one of the sides by like, I think 5 to like 30 milliseconds. And that delay widens the sound. Because it's like playing slightly off. Just be careful when you're doing this because you will lose... I can't remember the word is, but it will... If you do this on like basses or a lot of stuff, and then you play it on a system, it'll really sound shit. So just little things like your rides and that, it's totally fine. And then I got an imager just turning it down a bit. I wanted it wide, but I didn't want it too wide. And yeah, that is my hats. And I've automated it, so I have this here. But why I do this is because I want, right on this beat, I want my rides to start. And to get them to start because they're in MIDI, I have to play it before. But if I don't have this automation cutting out the gain, I'll hear it play here. So all it is it's playing here, but you're not hearing it until it starts here. That's why I do that. And you might be thinking, Aiden, why don't you just resample that so you don't have to do that and you can drag it and drop it? And I say that's a really good idea. But the reason I don't like to use it is because I like to reuse sounds a lot in my projects. And sometimes I like to drag them in, and then later on I'll decide I don't want to use that actual sample, so I'll switch the sample out here, but I'll still have all my MIDI patterns here. And that is because Ableton has this awesome feature that I don't often see talked about. And I'm going to show you it. That is where you can use tracks from other projects. You can just drag it directly in, and it'll have your MIDI or your audio. It'll have your automation. It'll have all of this stuff here ready to go. And it is such a sick feature. And I'll show you how to do it right now because I think it has helped me with my workflow more than anything in production. It's allowed me to reuse sounds without thinking on those days where I really don't want to fucking be like sound designing like crazy, but I'm in the mood to make a song. I can just drag them from my other tracks and then just keep that workflow up. It's like awesome. So what you do is you click add folder, and you can add a project if you want here, but I just have my music folders where my tracks are saved. It's called music folder 8. It's the 8th year that I've been using this naming format. Music folder 8, and here's my tracks. So what you do, like I said, you click add folder, add in the project. This is the project here. If you click this drop down box and then you click into the act, that's what I've named it. So if you click that drop down box, you'll see all these channels. As you can see, it's literally like the same channels as like here, because this is like my template that I use. And I want this hat. Let's say I want, I don't know, shaker 5. You drag it in like this. Drop it, let go. There it is. That's shaker 5. How cool is that? It's got all the processing. If I've automated, which I don't think I have, that'll all be there. Like that is, it's such a good thing that I never see anyone talk about. It helps you with your workflow like crazy. It's actually like, oh, it's so good. So just use that where you can. So to come back around to what I was saying before I showed you that, that is why I keep my rides like this. Because let's say for this song, I don't want to use cymbal mod. I want to use the 707 ride. I can just go 707 core kit, drag that in. And it's there with all the processing and everything. So that's why I do that. Really handy. Anyway, on to my claps. Straight up, just a clap from Splice. I've just made 2 layers. I put it into a group. One of them's this. I mean, not necessary. You could just find a nice clap if you want. But I was having fun at the time, so I did that. Start speeding through it a bit more because it's kind of like going to get repetitive. Same thing with the reverb, bright hall, cutting some lows, boosting there, compressing. Simple pattern. And then just a vengeance loop just to like sit in the back. Yeah, just cutting a lot without all the processing. And I've just resampled it so it doesn't have it, because I think it came with like a clap or a snare. I've just put the first hit where the clap would be, so it just repeats. And then looped it and dragged it out. But see how it's got a hit where the kick would be? That was adding to the kick, I noticed. So when this loop isn't playing, I just made a version of it where it's just the kick bit. And yeah, so wherever there's no like hats or anything happening, it's just this. So it's kind of like more top end to the kick, but just not up in the kick area. And yeah, same old stuff. It's completely mono, this one, a bit too wide. And that's my drums for this track. So with like everything playing, it sounds like this. Overdrive, this is good. Just the same thing. Haven't touched the tone. 20 without it. Endless smile, that's just for the build up. It just echoes it out a bit. And then I have an EQ. That's automated the highs so that when like the verse is playing, the endless smile and that do their thing. And then I have a compressor that's not doing anything, so I don't know why that's a... And that is my drums. Now onto the weird stuff. The bleeps. So let's have a listen. We'll turn off all of these. And I use Cardinal for this. Really cool. So this is like a free like VCV rack. I think it like emulates analog synth, like an analog synthesizer. Awesome. Like such a sick like idea. I was looking for something like this the day I made this song, and like went on YouTube and just saw that this is free. There's so many different like things you can add to it. All I did was kept it simple. This is just a sine wave. Just a sine wave with some nice ADSR, going through a bit of distortion just to like give it a bit of crit, then through an EQ and then out. That's it. That's all it is. There's I originally had reverb in this, but I didn't know how to automate the reverb in this in Ableton, so I just added my own. And the way I made the pattern is I used ML185. Click this random button. And you just go through and you keep going until you hear little dissonant, like until you hear little like dissonant frequencies or like steps. And usually what I like to look for is just a one step in between things. So this is +7. I can make that like. And I just look for those little things. It sounds kind of lame right now. It just happened at the time. I got a really nice pattern going. It also helps when you have all the processing because it kind of gets you in like what you're listening for. But yeah, that's how you do it. And then that same thing how I showed you just previously with adding a channel down, as you can see here. And then you record it and then you just go through, start shifting these around until you find something that you like. And I landed on this. And then we added Valhalla Vintage Verb. Again, same thing, Bright Hall. But I have the mix getting automated. And then the decay. And as you can see here, the mix and decay. Also, when I do my automation, I drop it down like this, so I don't have to go digging to find the automation. I can visually see it. I like to visually see like my automation. Without that hectic. You can still hear the mix. The mix is like something you can still hear. But it gets amplified like crazy. Compressor, just for when it's getting like echoed. I want it to just be like one real messy sound. EQ, that has automation. Because I didn't want any low end. And that is it. And then I have another similar thing, same process. As you can see, yeah, look, it's the ML185 still there. I've used pitch just to pitch it down a bit. Cardinal, I think it's the exact same preset that I made. It's a fucking sine wave with some distortion, like it's not hard. And then this is a cool preset. It's in Ableton, just type in groove, Control F, and then groove, I think, and then press DE at the end, so it's delay. Otherwise you get groove, and there's like 1,000 fucking things. So you click DE, it's that one. I've marked it as red because I use it a lot. Chuck that in, turn that down, and that sounds like this. Same shit. Originally it was like this. Just lots of bleepy bloops in this tune, but it works. It sounds cool. Well, I at least think it does. It's the same thing. Because I copied and pasted it, it's the same processing, except that I added this in here just to make it ping pong and jump between the ears rather than being dead center. And the reason I did that is because this main bleep is like dead center, right down the middle. And this one, I wanted it to be around, which explains why I've EQ'd like this. So I got mid-side EQing happening. Side EQ, left it normal, just cut the lows. But the mid, I dipped where like the main beeps are. And that's just because I want this to kind of not be in the way as like my main bleep. A little bit of mixing for you. And then I turned it up a bit, compressed it so it's a flat signal. And then all together, I just compress them together. That main beep really is getting the main brunt of this. And then cut lows out. You probably don't need to do that, but it's just the habit I get into. And that is my bleeps. And then we'll go down to my effects. Did a little bit more than usual in this one. This one's not even on, but I'll explain what that does. This, I was just having fun. I wanted just like a weird, like eerie, like constant, like droney sweep happening. So I put in, this is just a bit crush sweep. It's literally called a sweep. Same thing, same basically preset. Just push the tone up a bit, driven it a bit more with the groove. EQ'd the shit without it. Kind of sounds like cicadas, but with the EQ. Valhalla Vintage Verb, doing the same thing. Another EQ. As you can see, I automated the high-end compressor, just making it a big flat signal. And then I got an LFO going really slowly left to right on 40 and 60% on just left to right. It's going 10% left, 10% right. And I automated the width going up 10%. Probably not needed. And then I'll go through the sweeps first, just so you know what it is. Sweep 1. It's literally just a sweep with some reverb that I've put auto pan on, so it's not going left to right, it's just the volume. So it's a bit different. And that's just reverb, quite long, that's how you can hear the tail. And then same thing, I probably just copied and pasted this down and added in another sweep. With some more EQing, without it. Cool. And now, here's these sounds. So I'll play this one. Sick sound. All that is I'm doing, again, just same reverb, EQ, compressing it. It was too wide for my liking, so I didn't make it as wide. And that's it. How I made that is, this is just a sample. Show you in Explorer what it sounded like. No, I'll show you in a browser what it sounded like. Cool. So what I've done is just playing that last bit because I like that. I like how it sounds. Cutting the lows, cutting the highs, and then this echo, I had it 101%. So if we have that on and we play a note, listen to what it does. It just keeps going forever. But because it's at 101%, it starts to like go overboard and starts to spaz out and like distort and go crazy. And I basically hit record of just this for the whole song length and recorded it in. And then I was like, well, that's cool and all, but how do I get movement in it? I don't want it to just be one solid sound the whole way. So I added shifter. And as you can see, I've got a really fine, really slow LFO that is a bit offset on the fine tune. And I'll play it here. You can slightly hear it going up and down, really subtle. You probably can't even hear it in the full song. But like, you know, it was having fun. And that's what that shifter's doing. Just slowly moving down. And I just fine-tuned that until I got to a point where it wasn't too low that it was noticeable. Like really noticeable, but you can hear it change over time. And then cut the lows, compressed, because this signal, when it starts going over 100%, 101%, starts to get really loud and yucky. So I compressed it. And I did that to create this. And before this one, I originally did it on this. Same thing, just different sample. So you can hear that that's like clearly like an echoed, like distorted sound. Like that. Just hollowed it out a bit. It's too wide. Made it more mono, but also turned it up because it went quieter. And now we'll go into one last thing, which is the arrangement. How do I arrange it? You might be thinking. So what I do when I'm making the song is I usually loop 2 kicks or 4, because this is techno after all. We need that looping feel. It's really important to the vibe of the song. Also, it's fun to do that. A lot of people use this. I come from FL Studio, which doesn't have this, so it's quite foreign to me. I really want to learn it, but I've never actually have bothered for more than like an hour or 2 at a time to like learn to produce this way. I've just got a real good workflow in here. So what I do for my arrangement is I add to the song. I usually start like just with this bit. And as you can see, a lot of the elements are there, but they're turned off. And that's because I just don't want a lot to happen at the start of the song. I want it to build essentially to like a crescendo. Builds up, and then it cuts back again, really cuts back, and then starts building up again. Really fun to mix that way. It's just like how a lot of it's arranged. I like to do it in these phrases. That way when it comes to mixing it live, it's like I don't really have to think. It's a lot easier. You don't have to, it doesn't really matter. It's just how I like to do it. This song starts with just like the beeps. And yeah, and then I slowly add. So then I'll add the hat. I'll add the shaker with the vengeance loop. Well, all this, while like the beeps and all the other elements are starting to get automated in. They all slide in. They all start to add to that like tension, that build up of energy. The other hat then comes in. The ride will then come in. You can start to hear these things come in. It's all starting to get there. This is like someone on ketamine's nightmare at like 3 a.m. at a festival or nightclub. They're going to have to leave because they're starting to hear this crazy shit. It's all building. Rides come in again. Cuts back. We start to cut back rather than cutting straight to the verse. Oh no, that is the verse. So it cuts back into the verse where there's no bass. Automate endless smile. Automate the drums, the high end getting cut out. Automate the bass starting to get like cut out. Just playing on tension and release. Just, you know what I mean? Like what we're doing is we're cutting energy out to then bring it back to quite a stripped drop, but because there's no energy before it, the chorus here, it works. And then we start adding again. Shut up. And you might be thinking, damn, like, how do you know all this? Like, how did you learn that? And it's honestly practice. Practice and listening to professionals' songs. And I'll show you how you do that. So let's say you don't know any arrangement. You're like, shit, I don't know how to do this. What do I do? Make a reference channel at the top. Set its external out so that it's not interfering with your master. And then just drag tracks in and label shit. This is one of my other ones that I've made a while ago. But as you can see, I've dragged it in at the top just to show you guys. So let's say I really like this arrangement. It's a lot shorter, but let's just say I really like it. Or like I don't know, you might have like a Schler song or an Alarico song or a Rene Wise or a Hemka or something like that. If you really love the arrangement of a song, but you don't know how to do it, just copy it. Just go through and copy it and just see where they're placing stuff and how they're doing it. And just put it in your reference track and just label it. Kick, this is where the hat comes in. Like I'll play it because it's mine, it doesn't matter. That's where the hat comes in. So I'm going to right click. Well, I'll show you here. Right click, add locator, hat. And then you can drag that around. We'll delete it though because it's already there. And then another phrase shows here. Add another locator, name it what you want. And just go through like right here. I'm like, oh, so he's cutting back here. So I could write that down, cut back. I'm like, oh, this seems like the verse and this is the chorus. So I'll write like chorus in here, or I'll add another locator here and go verse. And then you can just go through and you can just just copy it with your song. Like, no one's gonna crack the shit to you because you copied the arrangement of someone's song. If they do, they're a fucking weirdo. It's like, are you gonna yell at pop songs for having a specific arrangement? Like, they literally follow like a specific arrangement. So just do that. It's a really good way to learn, and eventually you don't even need it. Obviously, when you're copying, don't like bar for bar copy like sounds and shit. Use this as a reference so that you know where to play stuff. And the whole goal is so that you can learn to do this, not so you can steal someone else's shit. That's the idea behind it. But yeah, you just do that, make these locators. That's why I have them everywhere. I mean, even when I don't use references, I still use the locators. I like to see the different chunks visually broken up. I'm a very visual like producer. As you can see, everything's color coordinated. And there's one more thing I forgot to mention that is quite important, and it's the kick here. So you'll notice in techno songs and like a lot of like, you know, house as well, there's parts where the bass gets cut out. So I'll play this bit here. Where these kicks are, there's no bass. And the way I do that here with the bass line is I just obviously I have an EQ that's got the cut, and I just automate the on off. That's what this is. But I do it differently with my kicks. So what I do is I just copy the body kick down. This has already got the lows cut out, so it doesn't matter. Copy the body kick down, and then I just add that EQ, which is at 90, and I have that always on. And the reason I do that is so that I can just drag this down there. Because it's the same kick, it's now going to have no low end. So with the kicks here, listen. And the reason I do that is simply visual. You could just, if you like automating it, you could just do what I did here. Automate that after this. I don't want to do that. I like to know when the bass is getting cut out. Okay, so I know that this bit here, there's no bass. I can visually see that. I line it up with this. Well, I'll line this up with them. I could see it. I know I don't have to think, oh shit, where am I at my song? I don't even have to think. I can visually look, and I can just go and do that. And I can just walk you through my master. Look, I'm not a mastering engineer. I probably do shit wrong. I change it a lot the way I do it. This is just a nice, quick, easy way to master that I can have my music played and can self-release. I get compliments on my mix and master. Funk Assault played some of my music at Pitch this year, which is a big festival in Australia, and they played the songs that I'd mastered on like this crazy speaker system, and they sounded fucking great. So this works. Just usually I'll put a utility first and drop it, make it quieter. I didn't in this one because I'm an idiot, but whatever. I'll usually make it quieter by like 5 or 10 decibels. Then I'll add this. This is a nice preset, just a glue compressor, gentle limiter, real subtle. Add satin, faster master preset and color. Like, oh, preset, put on linear phase. Really good, high quality if you can be bothered. I usually set these to about 4, and then I'll come in here, and sometimes I'll change these if the high end's a little bit too harsh. Just really like flattens it out. I'll add an EQ. I'll leave it as it is. I'll put linear phase on and leave it. Sometimes I use fresh air just to boost the highs. Not all the time. Well, actually, I rarely use it. Lately I've been using a multi-band compressor just to like kind of like flatten it out a bit, like the highs and the lows. Standard clip, awesome. This is just a soft clipper. I'm just pushing by 6 dB with oversampling up a bit. You can use like another limiter or anything. True peak limiting, minus 0.1. You can do 0.3. A lot of people do. And then I up the gain by 2. Uline loudness meter, just to monitor the loudness. And I usually go for around like -6 to -7. Usually around -7 I hang around. LUFs. And then I have span. Sometimes I use it as like a reference just to check where my like basses are. I usually don't like my low end to go over the 30 here. And then I'll go back into EQ and I'll just balance it. Once I've done this and I've got it to loudness, I then go back. I'll do some cuts, linear phase on so that it doesn't change the sound, doesn't like fuck with it. And then I'll pull down on certain frequencies, push up. Not by much, only by 1 or 2 dB. Just to shape it a bit better. And that's the final product. And this is just a return track that I don't even know if I've used in this one, but it's just this preset, drum air, pre-delay. With that like that, this all the way up, that all the way down, really short, and then I'm compressing it. I don't even know if I've used this. Pretty cool though. Like I'll show you what it sounds like on a hat. Because it is a cool thing. So this is the hat. So I hope that helped. I hope you learn a lot. I hope you got some insight into how I do stuff. It might not be pro, it might not be what you think. I might do stuff wrong, or I might do stuff right and it might be all correct, and who cares? It's just how I produce. And I think that's really important. Something that you guys should all try to take away is if you find what works for you, what translates onto a good system, what sounds good streaming, and what you enjoy making. You have to be having fun while you're doing this. And that's why I get so, like, to me, it's so important to, like, be able to get into a nice workflow, because that means you're having fun. If you're, like, zoned out, using your brain, just really enjoying it rather than cycling through like 100 kick samples for like 2 hours. I find that really fun, and I make good music when I do that. And don't worry when you're starting out about using presets. Don't worry about using loops. Obviously, don't just go rip some main thing from Splice and then just upload basically a Splice loop. I mean, you can even fucking do that. Just understand that you're probably going to get called out for it by everyone on the internet. And if you're not willing to deal with that shit, then just don't do it. Use these things as like learning. Use them to like supplement some shit like this. This is just in the background. I mean, sometimes you don't want to be like programming all this stuff. Sometimes you just want to have fun and make a song, and that's so fine. And just do that. And if it works, who gives a fuck? Who cares? So yeah, just try get into that flow state. Try zone out while you're learning. Don't be afraid of what other DJs and producers are going to think, because a lot of them will call you out on random shit that is just pointless and doesn't matter. The internet is very loud, but at the end of the day, it isn't the most important thing, especially when it comes to producing. And you're here. You got Ableton or FL or whatever open. You're producing music. You have an interest in this, which means that you're going to have a curiosity in it, and you're going to eventually think, how do you make a shaker loop like this? How do I make a cool thing like Vengeance? And you will just learn that over time. This just takes years to like master. I've been doing this for 13 years. It's just a long ass process, but you enjoy it. Doesn't mean to say there's not going to be stressful times. There definitely will be. But, you know, overall, try have fun in the studio. If it's pissing you off, just take a break. But yeah, so I hope that helped. I hope you liked going through my song. I hope you learned something and saw that there's not a lot going on to make a pretty full song. If you really like this, just follow me on my socials or subscribe here and like the video. That really helps. It'll really show if this was like a good, helpful video. And if you want to support me, then just buy my music on Bandcamp. I have a Patreon, but I don't really use it much. So I'd prefer if you just, purchase something, because then, you get something out of it. You get to own music. And the more money I make through music means the more money that is in my music career, which means I can do this more and do things like press my stuff to vinyl, create merch and all that stuff to then give to you guys. So you own your music and it's not all just streaming. I hope that helped. Thanks for watching. And I'll definitely do this again. I'll break down a lot of my songs. It'll be a lot of repetition, but it's how we get good. So thanks for watching and see you later.